I'm Chris Glantz, professor of obstetrics and gynecology in the Division of Maternal Fetal Medicine here at the University of Rochester School of Medicine. In recent years, there have been quite a few trends towards increasing utilization of procedures in obstetrics, such as inducing labor or cesarean section. Both have been rapidly rising over the last 10 or 15 years after a little bit of a decline in the early 90s. There are several reasons why this might be the case. I think, for one, the medical legal climate hasn't gotten any better, and doctors, I think in general, tend to err on the side of doing something to try to get the baby out rather than letting nature take her time and do it on her own. Second thing is, I think that as social values change, women who used to think there's absolutely no way I would want any sort of intervention in what I perceive as a natural process, now in fact commonly are asking for the same interventions they previously refused to have. Now there's a fairly strong movement of wanting to be induced on a certain date or around a certain date. Some of them it's to want to be with their own doctor whose call schedule may be such that they're only in the hospital once a week and they want it to be that day. Some of it may be around their work schedule, sort of a last vestige of the illusion of control that they no longer will have once the baby is out, thinking at least I can control the day I deliver. Some it's other family issues, and some it just seems like, well, I schedule everything else in my life, I'll do this too. It used to be that you wouldn't induce labor unless there was a really good reason, because in fact it doesn't always work. Sometimes you try to induce labor, and you try some more, and you try some more, and in the end you wind up doing a cesarean that might not have been necessary had you just let nature take its course. A cesarean, of course, is a major surgery. We do a lot of them. I think people, again, are kind of lulled into a sense of security because everyone knows someone who has had a cesarean, because in fact these days about a third of all pregnancies are delivered by cesarean. And most people, of course, do well. But it is a major surgery. There are risks: bleeding, infection, injury to the bowel and bladder, and not the least these days, if you've had one cesarean, if you get pregnant again, that baby tends to be delivered by cesarean. This means you're not really having one unnecessary surgery after the induction that may or may not have been necessary. You might be having 2 or 3, or however big of a family you want. When I was doing some of my work with the birth certificate database, which is what I use for much of my work, one thing that strikes me is that one hospital will have a certain rate of, say, inducing labor or doing cesarean, and another hospital will have quite a different rate. What I found in this most recent study was no matter what the rate was, whether it was high or low, whether it was induction or whether it was cesarean, it didn't seem to make any difference in how the babies did. To me, since we know there are risks to the mom of being induced, we know there are risks to the mom of having a cesarean, in theory, the reason you would be having those interventions would be to improve the baby's health. If you can't really show any improvement in the baby's health, if you're at the high end versus the low end, it makes sense to me to maybe aim for the low end, because you're intervening less, you're actually doing less harm to mom, and you're not hurting the baby. So philosophically, and I think medically, that would be the justifiable approach.